Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani. This is America's Mayor live, very live, and excited about. Well, I have to tell you, I've had this dream of going to Tehran and as a free country and having the experience that I had many years ago in going to Warsaw, Poland. And as I was brought up as a child, communism was the great enemy, both politically and in terms of my religion as a Roman Catholic. The Lady of Fatima and prayers, the Latin Mass, which is controversial. It isn't controversial. People like to make believe it's controversial. The Latin Mass used to end very often. I don't know if it was everywhere, but certainly in the churches I went to in New York and Brooklyn, it used to end with a prayer to convert Russia from communism. Every Catholic church, and a fair number of sermons and teachings by the nuns and would be about the inherent dangers of communism. So by the time I graduated from grammar school, I had a pretty good idea of who Karl Marx was and Engels, and not in any kind of scholarly way, but in a general way, and not in a way like made them into comic book creatures, but an alternative version of how the world should be organized that would deny us our ability to practice our faith the way the early members of our church in the first and second century were martyred. So communism has always been a very big issue for me, understanding it, studying it. I studied communist philosophy in college. Also studied comparative religion. And by the time I was 19, I discovered that there's something wrong with the basic text of the Islamic religion. And it's very hard to straighten out when there's something wrong with the text and you don't confront them honestly and reject them. Many of the books that are the basis for religion are very old, like the Bible, particularly the Old Testament, right? And they'll have things in it that we just wouldn't do today. And it's beyond question they're rejected. You don't see Jewish rabbis and priests. They don't really, I think, have priests anymore, but they did in ancient Judaism. You don't see them cutting the necks of rams and cows and throwing the blood on the altar. Well, if you go back to the book of Leviticus, which I'm reading right now, that's what God told them to do. But of course, that's antiquated, and for Christians, all of those rules were set aside by Jesus because he came to fulfill the teachings of the prophets and substitute all of that animal sacrifice with the holy sacrifice of the Mass, which is his sharing his body and blood with us. But for Jews who didn't accept that, don't believe that, they did away with those practices. Just like the practice of stoning women, which comes up both in the Old and New Testament. And in the New Testament, a lot of people misunderstand this. When the woman is brought in front of Jesus who had committed adultery, I think, some kind of sexual misconduct. Maybe she was a prostitute, whatever. And the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the people questioning Jesus wanted to put him on a spot because the Jews had rejected that kind of stoning for centuries. They didn't do it anymore. And they wanted to see what he was going to say because they were hoping he was going to say stoner, 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 because they thought he was a fanatic. And of course, it was probably one of the most brilliant answers to a difficult question ever given by anyone. One would expect that since it was God who was giving the answer. And when they said, "What shall we do with this woman?" He didn't address himself to the prior law, which had been abandoned by the Jews. He didn't address himself to all of the 10 hours of fighting that used to go on in those days in the study halls. They just looked at them and said, he who has not sinned, throw the first stone. And they looked in his eyes and they realized this was a very serious man. And one by one, they dropped their stones and walked away. And then he said to her, go and sin no more. Now, that has to be one of the most beautiful stories in human history, as well as one of the most beautiful examples in Christianity. But what it shows is what I'm going to talk about today, Muslims should officially write off, because its presence in their books, of which I have many here, this book, the Quran, can be an exceedingly dangerous book and has been for 1,400 years. When people just blithely or in an uneducated way say, Islam is a religion of peace. Well, I don't know which one you want to use, because they screw around with the translation. You can go to the most, this would be the most orthodox translation. This would be the study. This gives you all of the background, because the Quran is not by itself. The Quran is accompanied by almost as many as you want hadiths. What is a hadith? A hadith is a commentary on the Quran, and they're in various orders of acceptability. The most acceptable ones are listed, and as you move down in acceptability, fewer and fewer people believe them. But they're needed to do a complete explanation, and those are available here in the study Quran. And really, the ones available in the study Quran are the authoritative ones. You could get a 5-volume set that has some of the others. And this is an enormously important work. This reorganizes the Quran because it is a intentionally deceptive book. There were two Muhammads to make things easy to analyze. And this book divides it in two: the Mecca Muhammad and the Medina Muhammad, the good guy and the bad guy. Because they realized that there were an awful lot of things in here about enjoining, commanding, requiring that members of the religion slaughter people. They came up with a thing called aberration. An aberration is, since there are contradictory remarks by the prophet, the last remark prevails. So if you read this book, okay, if you read this book right here, and you got right, and you remember number 5, the 5th book out of 50, 60, 70, whatever. Okay, so you would think that at the beginning is, Jesus was born, blah, blah, blah. You would think at the beginning is the beginning, and aberration is if he says something bad here, then he says something good here. The good here overcomes the bad here. Well, that's if they had it in order. The only chapter that's in the right order is the first chapter. And the first chapter is a prayer. The first chapter is not a story. The first chapter is, in fact, their prayer that they say every day. It's the Al-Fatah, with the name of Allah, the most gracious, the ever merciful. I commence to read the holy book. All type of perfect and true praise belongs to Allah alone, the Lord of the worlds, the most gracious, the ever merciful, master of the day of requital. You alone do we worship, and you alone do we implore for help. Lead us on the exact right path till we reach the goal, the path of those on whom you have bestowed your blessings, those who have not incurred your displeasure. The minute we finish that, the book becomes completely confusing, particularly with regard to these very, very important determinations which have to be made about which prevails, particularly since the prophet talks a lot about killing people, at least 104 times in this book. And probably half of that are Jews and Christians. The other half would include Jews and Christians, but in a much wider context of infidels, non-believers. They talk about killing them. They talk about how to kill them. They talk about the rewards that you get for killing them. And then eventually they come up with the idea of hadith, which is some of them can pay you in return for that. That's all in this book that, for example, Zoltan Mandani put his hand on and swore to be mayor of New York. This book should have been ripped out of his hands and thrown down. And he should have been required, he should have been required to say what he agrees with and what he doesn't agree with in this book. Because some of this book tells him to do murder. But let's take something a little softer than that, because they put this at the very, very beginning. And here's what it says. This should be 50. This will be the fifth book, which sound 70 books. It sounds like this is pretty early in his ministry, right? And this is chapter 51. And this is going to be different than the authoritative translation, because they changed the translations also. And you're going to see when we go to the study version why. In chapter 5, section 51, it says, "O you who believe, do not take those particular Jews and Christians with a paren who are enemies of Islam for allies. They are allies to one another. Paren went against you. And whoso from amongst you takes them for allies is indeed one of them. Now you shall see those in whose hearts is a disease of hypocrisy, vying one with another towards them, those Jews and those Christians, to take them for allies." So this sounds like you should not associate with Jews and Christians who are enemies of Islam. Now, if I showed you this, you would see that's in parentheses. Because it's not in the Quran. Some apologists are trying to make the religion more acceptable, and not and this book not a documentary for war and killing. Put it in. So let's go to a source that gives you the different versions and is a little more honest. And we'll go to the same chapter, which is 50:51. And 50:51 says, in this book, that's 41. "Oh, you who believe," starts the same, "take not Jews and Christians as protectors." No paren now. They are protectors of one another. And whoever takes them as protectors, surely he becomes one of them. Truly, God guides not a wrongdoing people. Yet thou seest those in whose hearts is a disease hastening to them, saying, we fear lest a change of fortune shall befall us. Now, they go ahead and explain 51. The verse addressed to Muslims, O you who believe, forbids them to take Jews and Christians as protectors. Al-Iya, or Wali. In ancient times, meaning when it was written, the book meant friends. See what they've done? They've moved it a little out from, and now I'm going to read you the original version. I'm going to read you the original version of it. This is what Muhammad tells his people, not at the very beginning of his life, that then could be overcome when he says that Jews and Christians are people of the book. But this is actually written about a year before he dies, although it's the fifth book, see? The fifth book. It really belongs here. Important because the things that are later supervene the things that are earlier. Here's the authoritative translation. Oh, you who believe, do not take the Jews and Christians for friends. They are friends of one another. He among you who takes them for friends is one of them. Indeed, Allah does not guide wrongful people. So we start off with the fact that all these people who are coming here, who are going around killing us, right? And saying Allah Akbar, believe that Jews and Christians shouldn't be friends. That's what their holy book says to them in what amounts to be really the fourth to last chapter, which makes it extremely authoritative. In fact, if you divide it into his Mecca period and his Medina period, you will find that almost all of the invocations to murder, slaughter, torture, fight, for example, in the cause of Allah, those who fight you, and slay them wherever ye catch them, and turn them out from where they have turned you out. For tumult and oppression are worse than slaughter. But fight them, not at the sacred mosque, unless they fight you. If they fight you, slay them. There must prevail faith and justice and Allah. You fight them to make Allah, to force them to accept Allah as God, which is what they did to the Persian people. They attacked, they killed them, they committed genocide against the Zoroastrians, and they forced them to be Muslims, which is what they're trying to do right now. This is exactly what the 19 people on the planes that came to New York and Washington and over the skies of Pennsylvania, this is exactly what they were following. And now, 26 years later or so, this is exactly what the two young men who have been radicalized. Radicalized is not some unspecific kind of thing. They've been made into very faithful Muslims. If you consider a faithful Muslim one who reads the book, does not make serious edits from it, and follows it, they didn't invent what they were doing. What they were doing was invented 1,400 years ago. Fighting is this is also from a surah, meaning the actual book of the Quran. Fight in the cause of Allah. This is all over here that you have to fight. Fighting is prescribed for you. and if ye dislike it. But it is possible that ye dislike a thing which is good for you. Fighting is good for you. This is part of this book is a recruitment manual, like the 79 Virgins. I mean, these guys probably didn't have a lot of, sexy chicks with bikinis running around. But if they killed a Christian or a Jew and got killed doing it, they got 72 to 79. Now, that's not in the Quran. That's suggested in the Quran and then followed up in the Hadith. And there is a dispute as to the number. Large number, 72, 79, depending on the Hadith that you virgin for sure. Fighting is prescribed for you and you dislike it. But it's possible that ye dislike a thing which is good for you and that ye love a thing which is bad for you. But Allah knoweth best. Allah knows that fighting is good for you. That's the religion we're talking about. It's a religion that says that fighting is good for you. Hence, what do we see all over the world in Muslim countries? What are most of the wars in Africa about? What are half the wars in Asia about? What have half the wars we've fought since Muhammad put this thing out about? And fight them on until there is no more tumult or oppression. And there prevail justice and faith in Allah, altogether and everywhere. And if they cease, verily Allah does see all that they do. And know that out of all the booty that ye may acquire in war, a fifth share is assigned to Allah and to the messenger. So Muhammad, like Vito Genovese, is getting a piece from all the boys who are doing the extortion, the robbing, the killing, the stealing. When you meet the unbelievers, smite at their necks. Just in case you want to check me out on this one, this is Surah 47 entitled Muhammad the Prophet of murder. When ye meet the unbelievers, smite at their necks. At length, when ye have thoroughly subdued them, bind a bond firmly on them. Thereafter, it is time for either generosity or ransom until the war lays down its burden. Thus are ye commanded. But if it had been Allah's will, he would certainly have exacted retribution from them. But he lets you fight in order to test you, some with others. But those who are slain in the war on the way of Allah, he will never let their deeds be lost. Soon will he guide them and improve their condition and admit them to the garden which he has announced for them. That's the one that has the 72 virgins. Be not faint-hearted and be one of those crying for peace, when you should be uppermost for Allah to fight for him. Like, don't get tired of killing for Allah. That's what Allah's all about, killing people. Now, this is what the two guys, 18 and 19, who came to City Hall, came to Gracie Mansion on Saturday with a rather sophisticated, or if not sophisticated, certainly dangerous bomb. This is what they believe. This is why they did it. One of them explains it in great detail. This is why the 15 Saudis and 4 other Muslims came to New York and Washington and Pennsylvania to kill us. to fulfill what they're being taught in that book of Muhammad, who, despite all of those things, they're telling people to kill that way, and there's so much more, there's 100 more of those, is described as the perfect man. He's the perfect killer. This would be an excellent source book for the mafia. They would have no trouble following this. As long as those verses are in there, the 100 or so, like the ones I've been reading to you, is this a religion or a cult of war? Is that a legitimate question? Is that a legitimate question? Take time to read it. Take time to read it and see. And then read its history and see what it produced, the wars that it produced. When Christians engage in war, which they do, tragically, it is against the teaching of the founder of their religion. He taught them to love their neighbors, to forgive their enemies. There's nothing like that in here. Nothing. He didn't tell them to annihilate the Jews. He didn't tell them to annihilate the Gentiles. He said to try to convert them by preaching an example. He's telling them, convert them by killing them and frightening the living daylights out of them. One is a religion. The other is a cult of war. Which is operative throughout the world and the second largest religion in the world. And when you look at all of these situations, it's at the core of it. And in order to avoid it, you have to do circumlocuitous logic around what the book says. And many do. So now let's take a look at what's going on in the war that is caused by that. Because the regime of terror brought to the forefront the teachings of Muhammad. Because many Muslims, as they became more modern and more realized that this stuff is insane stuff, and they buried it. And they didn't emphasize it. And many of them don't believe it. But they don't excise it either. And they do peculiarly become very defensive about it when others are pointed out for committing atrocious acts in the name of Muslim religion, when in fact they should reject that and join the good. They're not part of the murderers, they're part of the good people, whether they be Jews or Christians or infidels. So President Trump now has assessed the war as it's basically over. Now that's a little misleading because we really don't quite know what he means by that. But you have to, many of the critics say, oh, he keeps changing the goals and and it's very confusing. Isn't it supposed to be? What are we going to do? Constantly flag what we're doing, what we want, and how we want to get there to our enemies so they can stop us? Or maybe all these people who are criticizing him, who supported 47 years of appeasement of this Muslim, Muhammad-inspired world theocracy. Maybe they should grant that he seems to be much more successful in dealing with them than they've ever been. I mean, all of a sudden, the Ayatollah, who was untouchable, I don't know, he's up there in heaven praying for virgins, and he ain't getting them. In fact, I don't know if he's still in heaven. I just don't know how long. I mean, I don't know. So, yes, I made the mistake last night of looking at CNN, and he was being criticized for, he keeps changing his purposes. Now, now, now he doesn't want regime change. He hasn't said that. And he's always said that regime change is the optimum, not necessarily the only answer. Largely because he wants it to emerge from the people to avoid our imposing a regime on them, which would be bad for two reasons. A lot of people think of the example of Iraq, where the mistake is we tried to impose a government on them, or even in Libya or wherever. But there's even more of a reason here, a historical reason, where the Iranian people have for over 100 years been subjected to outsiders imposing dictatorial, homicidal, corrupt governments on them. And that's the Shah. He wasn't a king. He wasn't a royal. He wasn't an anything. He wasn't selected by God like he lied and said he was. He was a killer. He was a trained killer who happened to have impressed the British because he was so brutal. He didn't impress them with his scholarship and erudition. He couldn't read and write. And he became a multi-billionaire because he made deals with them and sold out his country's oil. British petroleum was really Iranian petroleum. And they took all there's the son of the Shah, whose only qualification is that he's the son of the Shah. That man has never had a job in his entire life, which is why he can pose like that there. You can only pose like that if you've never worked, because if you've worked, you can't quite get your neck out like that. That guy hasn't worked a day in his life. His only reason he's being considered at all for this is because he's the son of the murderer and corrupt dictator that preceded the Ayatollah. The president wants to be very, very careful that whatever happens emerges from the people who have been cheated twice, very dramatically, and then many, many other times. Once by Britain, once by the United States, and then by the Ayatollahs. So what's going on now? Do you want to give us a little?
Well, we have up on the screen, Mayor, an updated casualty count. We want to keep in mind during an active war zone. These numbers, people throw out different numbers, right? You have the Iranian Red Cross, you have all these different groups. But this is what we've been able to compile, and some of these figures we can trust. U.S. military, well, they're now listing 8 killed, so I already don't trust this number. We'll have to see where they come up with 8.
The last was Sergeant Pennington,
right,
who died, who was with the Space Force.
Space Force,
and that was separate from the 6.
Right.
For the 7 who died together, right? No, he was the 7th, wasn't he?
He was the 7th.
Yeah, so six died together.
Right.
And there's Stephen said there are more facts about that.
Well, yeah. So the original numbers that came out
first day, right?
Yeah, and so obviously, and that's why all this is so much in flux too. But some of the injuries were not necessarily reported right away. For, I mean, any number of reasons, right? Like Ted was saying, we're in the middle of an active
and you want to. I mean, you want to follow the. Notifying the families directly,
yep. And you don't want to necessarily. You don't know what information can give away when you write a report, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Because like the people who are really involved on the other side, analyzing it potentially, will be able to glean different insights from the announcements, and
and the amount of intelligence analysis is really massive now with AI and computers.
Right. Right, and that can go both ways. We are seeing a lot of AI out there, right? So we have to, any video we see, we often have to.
We just saw something on the screen, red circle and like an arena.
Right.
What is that?
Well, this is believed to be footage, footage of the Iranian
Is
people
that a
supporting
rally
the
for the
Islamic regime. That's our understanding. But again, we say this with limited knowledge. But this is reportedly a morning.
There's a report that I got sent out of Iran, in
Right.
which I can't tell which district it is. I can't tell if it's Tehran or Mashhad or one of the. But there's an order. Number one, they can't protest. Now you're shot for protesting on site. This one went a little further. This one said you're shot if you come out after 7 o'clock at night. And the only people allowed after 7 o'clock at night are the pro-regime people. But they don't want any anti-regime people in those crowds. So on penalty of being shot and killed, no trial, boom, boom, just dead. And that's why we're not going to know the numbers here until this is over.
But that does leave room for some footage to get out. If they're allowing pro-regime stuff, there is going to be a level of infiltration on our end.
I'll dig it out for you. I do have some footage, but there isn't an actual shooting. I have footage of a crew, IRGC crew, driving around with guns looking for people.
Yes. And if I want to just remind everyone too, if you are going to send us things, make sure you do it in a secure way, because it is dangerous to do this kind of stuff. And we're fortunate to have a number of sources, inside of Iran. But I do want to advise caution to anyone doing any of this, right? I don't want to put a target on anyone's back.
So if I can sum up yesterday and today, because yesterday really kind of built into today, and we think that Pete lived up to his expectation that he set that it would be the most brutal day of the war yesterday. Just a mere taken down to 60 ships, which is now up to 75 or 80, because that continued today. And now today, our emphasis is on the Iranian mine-laying vessels, the ones that they would use to block the Gulf of Hormuz. A lot of our attention, meaning United States attention, is being given to keep the Gulf of Hormuz open. It is open, but people aren't using it because they're afraid.
So the Strait of Hormuz, that is the only access to the Gulf?
It's the only access. It's the only access to certain. It's the only access to certain.
Well, to the oil assets in the Gulf, yeah. So, which is why it's such an important,
however,
corridor.
Saudi Arabia, as we're going to point out later, has built and has very active pipelines.
Pipeline infrastructure. Man, the Saudis are innovative.
Now, the Saudis and the Emiratis can replace about half of what is lost in the Straits with their pipeline.
And the pipelines are online.
Yeah, I'll show you the pipeline. The pipeline goes from let me see if I can find it here. Oh boy. Oh, there we are.
Well,
the pipeline goes from here's an overall picture of it if you want to take a look at it.
Yep, you got it.
You see it? East-West pipeline? That goes from all the way on the Persian Gulf or Arabian Sea, right? I mean, this normally would be a lot easier to take right over toward Bahrain, right?
Right.
And put it on a ship. Right. Instead, they send it right across the desert to Yanbu, which is in the Red Sea. And I'll show you now a bigger shot of it. I think you might be able to see it better with this. Okay. You see? So if you look carefully, I hope I have it somewhere. If you look carefully, you'll see the Gulf of Oman. Then you'll see Qatar. Then you'll see Bahrain. And the body of water where it says Bahrain is alternatively the Persian Gulf or the Arabian Sea. The part that's closer to Iran is the Persian Gulf. Right. The part that's closer to Saudi Arabia is the Arabian Sea. So they actually have compromised here by not putting a name on it. But you see how close that oil is to let's call it the Arabian Sea, because that oil would probably be easier and faster if it just went to the right when it came out and went through that little 20-mile thing there and right there, that little point right there is the Strait of Hormuz. Right there. Let me see if I can get one of my pens. Maybe you can get me my pen over there so we can get it, the white one. Now this is able to, this one is the biggest one. It's operating at half capacity right now. When this operates at full capacity, which, okay, it doesn't want to work. I mean, these things are just a pain in the you know what. Is it one in your room? There are plenty, but then they get tricky on me. We'll try this one. Oh, this is a good one. Yeah, this will work. We'll just give it a minute. So there are two others that aren't shown on this map. There is a smaller pipeline from Saudi Arabia. I think down here somewhere. It's about half the capacity of that one. That one is just being operated now, had never been used before, and they're using it. Then there's another pipeline, again, smaller, like that. But notice how inconvenient it is, right? Maybe not so inconvenient if you're delivering this oil to Egypt and to Europe, right? If you're going up here with it, think about it. The oil that comes out here is going to Asia. How about to China? It's a big, big factor for China. And I don't know what they're doing about oil right now, but the Iranians are using the Gulf of Hormuz. And we're letting them use it. And we're not taking out their ships. Because, and this is a dispute between the United States and Israel that came to a head when Israel bombed the 4 big oil supplies in Tehran, which not only affected Tehran domestically, but affected the military. From the point of view of the war, that was a very, very strategic and excellent hit. You take out, that might have constituted 20% of their energy supply.
See, a number of U.S. officials and, legislators and things were commenting that, in order to build back Iran in a, pro-freedom way, we're going to need that oil infrastructure.
Yeah, I know. It's not, this doesn't have an easy answer.
And I don't like destroying very valuable assets like that.
The president said that.
The president was opposed to it. Rubio was opposed to it. Even Lindsey Graham was opposed to it.
They're asking Israel to stop hitting the oil.
Oh, Lindsey was all kind of mad.
Now, but I mean, it isn't, I mean, their point is a very good point, but there is another side to it. You win the war and then worry about it later.
But the long-term disruption to the global oil.
Well, I'm going to give you a different point of view. Once this calms down, you've got 2 sources of oil that we didn't have in large measure before that isn't going to be sanctioned. Venezuelan, which pretty close to matches what Saudi Arabia has.
Right.
And some regard as better oil.
Yeah.
And Iran, whatever it does have, will be under our control.
Right.
So plus, we don't have an idiot, numbskull traitor president who doesn't allow us to use our oil,
right,
exactly,
and gas. Which, by the way, at this point, even with the cutbacks because of the phony green thing and all, right now we are energy independent. There are a lot of things we've talked about where we're not independent and should be of China. not oil. They're the ones who depend on oil, not us. And we could be even more. We're at the point now where we are one of the substantial exporting countries. We import oil, but we export oil. Of course, we make more money doing it that way.
Interesting logistics of a global market.
However, if God forbid you got shut out, you wouldn't have to worry. It would cost you more, but your energy would be there. Particularly important when we start getting into these massive computers that need ridiculous amounts of energy. If you can be in possession of your own energy source, you become whoever has the most energy is probably the most powerful country on earth.
Well, and that's a neglected part of the conversation too, because here in the home front, President Trump has put a lot of different energy initiatives together, and they're exploring
seems like one a day.
It's incredible, and so there's a lot on the horizon with regard to energy.
Now,
doesn't always have to be oil too.
One of the things that they're really pushing for, I think inside our military, because these are leaks that come out, I think. How do you know? You never know if leaks are true. Is that we start sooner rather than later what we promised to do, which is to escort ships through the Gulf. And there are ships, 20 or so, that have just braved it and gone through without escorts, I think. Or they may have had escorts and we didn't admit it. But it does seem to me, and this is Rudy's analysis, putting together the leaks and the action in the last 2 days in taking out all the boats that would be used to mine the Gulf of Hormuz and to attack. I think by the time we do the escorting, we want to have cleaned out a lot of their capacity to do damage there. So that's what I think is going on.
Well, and figure out where the mines are.
Yeah, I think that's what they're doing right now. I think they're devoting 2 or 3 days to making the Gulf of Hormuz as hermetically sealed as possible. You're never going to do it completely. And then we bring them through with, very, very lethal accompaniment. And I think we can also do it from the sky. I think we could have flyovers while it's going on. And the minute you see an attempt to shoot at one of these ships, you just take it out.
So how are the ships normally attacked or commandeered or hijacked?
They're usually hijacked by shooting at them and then boarding them.
Shooting, boarding.
The old pirate method.
Captain Phillips style. Yeah. Okay.
The Houthis are very good at that. That's their specialty.
Well, the Somalis, before they started on daycare fraud, that was their big operation.
Yeah, they're making a lot more money here.
Yeah. Yeah. Land of opportunity.
They don't want to leave Minnesota.
Hey, we actually like it.
The Democrat Party there is really taking care of them in exchange for their votes.
Well, they all have summer homes, Ted. They don't have to spend the winter in Minnesota.
It's amazing. These people are so wealthy.
Yeah. You have to laugh.
So, I mean, the Pentagon has given away a lot of this. It wasn't so prescient of me to come up with this. The Pentagon said the strikes are aimed at preventing Iran from mining the strait, which is the main way Iran could close the lane. Yeah. As of this morning, we had hit another 10 inactive mine laying boats and prevented them from laying their mines. So far, we haven't had a Navy escort for any of the tankers. The claim that we did was premature and not true. And the Pentagon is coming up with a strategy for doing that, which I think these military actions now is part of. And we conducted today, so far they don't have a count, what they describe as numerous continuous strikes in and around the Gulf of Hormuz. So you wonder, why is this so important? This is important because if the oil slows down, you got the rest of the world against you. And right now, we have most of the world, with the exception of Russia and China, and neither one of them appears to be playing much of a role. If they are, it's so clandestine, it isn't meaningful. Haig said yesterday, I think it was Pete, warned Russia.
Well, aren't the Iranian drones Chinese drones?
Yeah, that's already done.
Okay.
I don't know that. I really doubt that Xi Jinping, with a meeting coming up with Trump that he wants very badly, wants to get himself caught helping them right now.
But I know those drones need software updates, and those Chinese are probably doing them.
If they are and they get caught, they will jeopardize a meeting that he needs more than Trump needs. His economy is in much worse shape than the U.S.
And do you want to put the viewers' minds at ease? Is like, so why China taking Taiwan? How likely is that to happen?
Very unlikely.
Very unlikely.
Why don't we take a short break and we'll be right back. So tell me how much we've used up. So here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're gonna go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal, 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. Interesting. Good evening. Rudy Giuliani again with America's Mayor Live. You know, I left out of my analysis something that, and it's a little contradictory when you think about this, but unlike the CNN traders and all of those people, of course there should be contradictions, and of course there should be different strategies coming out of Washington. And no, there shouldn't be a roadmap for the war to make Americans feel comfortable. We're comfortable, and our enemies are forewarned. This is about winning a war, not conducting a television show, which frankly, I believe had seeped in too much into our military actions certainly during the Gulf Wars, and it seemed like they were being done for television. Like, win a battle tonight on television. This is not a show. One of the best cases I ever prosecuted, everybody in the world thought I was going to lose until the moment the jury came in and convicted. The only one who knew I was going to win was me and maybe my two assistants. But at times they were worried because I had done things. I didn't let the press leave the room. I put certain witnesses on. It was me and the jury against the world. Well, that's a different story. What you're looking at right now is an interesting take on the Gulf of Hormuz, Charge Island. Charge Island is the little island. The red dot is where it is, you see? And this is what it looks like. Okay? It's right off the Iranian coast. Now, here's the Gulf of Hormuz right there. Now, what is Charge Island? It's about 16 miles off the Iranian coast, about 16 miles out, okay? Which makes it very, very difficult to defend if somebody would like to put a nice little bomb on it, right? And take it out. And it handles roughly, get ready, 90% of Iran's crude oil export. Take it out, and this means cutting off the military budget completely and pulling the plug on the basic services that keep Iranian society functioning. It will assure the downfall of the regime. This is a statement from Mohammed Soleiman, who is a senior fellow at the DC-based Middle East Institute. But it isn't just him. I mean, it is logical. If you look at it, losing charge for even a few weeks will create a security and societal crisis in Iran that will be impossible for them to sustain. Tehran doesn't get to choose which one to deal with first.
I think
The revenue shortfall would run into the billions within less than a month. You'd see the currency collapse, inflation spikes, subsidies buckle, and this would add more pressure to the country with no quick way to stop the bleeding. The biggest, assuming you did this after you came up with alternatives, as we're doing right now. Remember, the price has gone down again. The biggest impact here would be China. Most of this oil does not, this oil, none of it comes to America. Most of it doesn't come to Europe. It heads to Asia, and China takes the vast majority of it. And I would say the biggest argument against it comes from J.P. Morgan, those very astute military analysts, who say it's likely it would trigger severe retaliation. Mr. Morgan, or General Morgan, or whoever the hell you are at J.P. Morgan, what are they going to retaliate with? What do they have? Oh, bows and arrows.
Well, and Mayor, that one of the challenges is going to be to how do you cause the people to blame the regime for the turmoil as opposed to the U.S. And that's going to be the PR campaign.
You got to take that risk, right? It's the same way. How do you get the Germans and the Italians and the Japanese to stop blaming us and blaming Hitler and Mussolini and the group that ran Japan? And in fact, I think we're much further ahead on that than you normally are.
Yeah, well, we have a modern world, right? We're connected a little more than we were.
But we do have a lot of Iranians, more than just a handful that are created, that are saying on their television, our television, and saying, strike, 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 strike. This is the only way we're going to live in freedom. And I do believe that's just from all the experience I've had with it, I do believe that's a legitimate factor, even if it's not the majority factor. If let's say that if we were to poll the people and we were to say, Iran's going to have to suffer tremendous losses for a period of time. But if you suffer those losses, you'll have a free, democratic government and a chance of becoming a great empire and wealthy again. Would that get 30, 40% of the Iranian people? I bet. That's enough. The others then change when you win. I mean, then all the former Nazis forget they were Nazis.
Well, and we have to remember too, we have a hard time getting the polling right in our country, right? So it's really hard to do it when you're inside of a totalitarian war zone. So we'll see. We'll have to see what happens.
But there's that crossover point. Get enough people. Look, a lot of these IRGC folks, right? They're not necessarily true believers in the cause, right? It's about power, money, and influence. They went with
Very
who was in
interesting.
charge.
How much have we reduced the IRGC?
Right.
I mean, we've made an appreciable cut in the number of IRGC members, and if
And
we
their
did it
capabilities.
and if we did it in the right places, hopefully we took out the most zealous ones. So the IRGC is going to have, like any other human institution, the really gung ho killers, and the guys who are doing it because you get very rich if you're in the IRGC. So and who'd rather live.
And my dad did it, you know, like
Yeah.
right.
I mean, if you're a big shot.
But I
So
can't
now-
imagine their infrastructure is doing well after a onslaught of bombs, high tonnage bombs. If Comcast is working down the street, our internet goes out, right? Imagine bombing an entire industrial base.
They're much easier to take out outside of Tehran than inside Tehran, according to our sources.
Well, if you don't want to destroy Tehran completely.
Tehran, they disproportionately protected Tehran. As you imagine, that's where the Ayatollah is. Now, here's a good example of what's going on inside Iran, what we saw with the soccer team. You would think that the soccer teams and the teams that play in the Olympics and on the international team would be among the most patriotic, right? To a young woman, these women did not want to go back to Iran. I would just like you to look at their faces, my God. So they, from the very beginning, they were making signals that they wanted asylum. Well, no, sorry. It was, and this is in fairness to the Australian government, which the president banged really hard and probably got it for them. But I think the Australian government, which is, I mean, Albanese is about as weak as they come and a socialist, silly little frump. But even he was moved by this. And also the fact that they targeted his house to kill him. I mean, you say, well, why? He's sort of half on their side. Well, they went after all the Arab countries too. Please understand, these people are crazy, nuts, insane. This is why they can't have nuclear weapons. Trump didn't make that up. Reagan didn't make it up. Watch how they act. They're suicidal. If they're suicidal, things go bad, they'll blow up the world. You let them become nuclear. Then you try to, suppose they were nuclear right now. Don't you think there's a chance they try to take the whole thing out? Suppose they knew they were going down. Even if they couldn't reach America, don't you think they'd take Europe out? I think that's what they're trying to do. They're attacking Bahrain, which is no threat to them at all. It's a benign country, I think, without a military. They're wasting missiles on Iran on Bahrain because they hate them. That is not the action of a dangerous enemy with a great strategic thinking. That's the adjective. That's the actions of a deranged person. You don't have enough missiles, and you're hitting Bahrain. They're not going to hit you. You're hitting Saudi Arabia. They're not going to hit you. You're hitting Jordan. They're going to put their planes up in the air and hit you. You've turned those countries now openly against you, where they had to be circumspect before that, which makes everything much, much easier for Trump and Netanyahu. You're almost making them friends. I mean, your insane activity may very well solve the Middle East, biggest Middle East problem. But these kids, these kids who were called the Lionesses, that was their nickname. These kids are so brave. I can't say enough. Gee, I wish we had a lot of athletes like this. Here they are. I want you to look at some of their faces, huh? I want you to look at the two on the left-hand corner, right there, and on your left. The girl at the bottom, look at her face. That's that very sad face. Look at the angry look on the girl on top of her. Look at the girl right here next to the girl with the angry face. Here. Oh, that's a desecration that I have there. You know what that is. But you take a look at their faces. You'll see one or two are smiling, but you've got some very, very frightened, scared faces. So they finally got asylum. And the number, I believe, that have gotten asylum so far is 7 or 8. President Trump told Australia, you don't do it, we'll do it. Stop being pussies, stop at Albany's, grow up, grow a pair of you know what, and give them asylum, damn it. What, do you want to get people murdered? And if you don't want to do it, send them to us. That's how much President Trump cares about human life.
So 7 were granted asylum. 1 has changed their mind and is going back to Iran.
Could be because of the family, right? It could be because of the family.
Right.
Now I got to show you this next picture before I go. This next picture is a picture of Comrade Islamic extremist loving Mandani, and he's here with Khalil. What's his name? Khalil. Mahmoud Khalil, right? Who hates Jews, created unbelievable chaos and violence and destruction at Colombia. And as we're going through a war like this, he has this Islamic-loving extremist for dinner at Gracie Mansion, and he treats him like he's Winston Churchill. I mean, that's taking a look at that, and I'm saying that's my dining room, not his. I never had a creep like that. I threw Arafat out of the United Nations. I didn't give him dinner. Right. Well, New York voted for him, and as Ed Koch used to say, you got what you voted for. I can't say that to my people. You made a mistake because you brainwashed, and I feel sorry for you. This guy is exceedingly dangerous. This is the most dangerous political operative holding a high position that I think we've ever had in the modern age in this country. And we'll have plenty of time to go over that. I want you to go over to Dr. Maria's show now, where many of these themes will be continued with her usual grace and elegance and insight. And we'll be back with you tomorrow at 7 on Lindell and at 8 here on X. Pray for the people going through this and all of the others who are under danger, and pray for our president. He needs your help, not because he's inadequate or whatever. He's doing it brilliantly. He needs your help, and he's doing it brilliantly because you are helping him. God bless America. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred, There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze,